What if the gods of ancient texts were not symbols, but witnesses? Not metaphors, not allegories, but observers of events that shaped humanity itself. What if the stories etched into clay tablets were never meant to be myths, but records, distorted by time, translated by belief, and buried beneath religion? More than 4,500 years ago, in the land we now call Iraq, the Sumerians created the earliest known written language, and within those writings, they spoke of powerful beings known as the Anunnaki. In epics such as Atrahasis and Gilgamesh, these entities were not described as distant spirits. They walked among humans. They issued commands. They altered the course of the world. Modern history classifies these accounts as mythology, symbolic stories created to explain the unknown. But some researchers ask a far more unsettling question. What if these texts were not symbolic at all? If they described visitors? One of the most controversial interpretations came from author Zecharia Sitchin, who spent decades studying ancient Sumerian tablets. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki did not originate on Earth. They came from a distant world known as Nibiru, a planet locked in a long elliptical orbit, a planet facing atmospheric collapse. Their survival depended on a very specific element: gold. Not for wealth, not for decoration, but for science. Sitchin argued that when gold is broken into microscopic particles and dispersed into an atmosphere, it can reflect harmful solar radiation, stabilizing a dying planet. Around 450,000 years ago, their search for this resource led them to Earth. At first, the Anunnaki mined the planet themselves, assisted by a lower class of beings called the Igigi. But the work was brutal. The ancient texts speak of exhaustion, of suffering, revolt. The Igigi refused to continue. Faced with rebellion, the Anunnaki demanded a new solution. Instead of returning home, they chose to create a new kind of worker. Sitchin claimed this was not creation through divine magic, but through advanced genetic intervention. A primitive hominid was selected, its genetic structure altered, its DNA enhanced. The result was a new being, Homo sapiens. The first of this new species was called Adamu. Designed to think, designed to learn, designed to obey, designed to mine. This story closely mirrors the biblical account of Adam, formed from the dust of the earth, but with a cosmic origin rather than a purely divine one. Mesopotamia became the Anunnaki's center of operations, a region Sitchin later linked to what myths would call the Garden of Eden. Here, humanity labored, but also learned. Towering in stature, possessing advanced technology, and living far longer than humans, were perceived as gods. They taught astronomy, mathematics, agriculture, and with that knowledge, civilization was born. But their presence on Earth did not last forever. Conflicts grew among their leaders, especially between the brothers Enki and Enlil, and eventually, the skyships departed. Before leaving, they established control through bloodlines, human kings ruling in their name. The Sumerian king list records rulers who reigned for impossibly long periods, tens of thousands of years, until a great flood reset the world. That flood appears again in the story of Noah. According to the tablets, Enki defied the decision to destroy humanity, and secretly warned one man, Zu-Sudra. After the flood, civilization began again. Human lifespans were shortened, control was restored, and yet, one question remains. If the Anunnaki were real, if they truly walked this earth, where is the proof? History speaks of gods, but what if it also hides a war? Not a war of swords and shields, but a conflict far older and far more subtle. After the Great Flood, ancient texts across cultures describe something unusual. Not peace, not renewal, but aftermath. A planet recovering from trauma. A world trying to stabilize itself. Systems buried deep beneath the Earth's crust. Structures hidden within stone and geometry. And remnants of a technology no longer understood by those who inherited it. According to alternative interpretations, beings known as the Anunnaki arrived not as rulers, but as stewards. Their purpose was not domination, it was balance. Harmony between planet and life. Restoration of Earth's natural resonance. Repair of what had been damaged. But something went wrong. A rival intelligence emerged, one that imitated the stewards, but reversed their intent. Where there was balance, it introduced control. Where there was harmony, it imposed hierarchy. Where there was cooperation, it enforced obedience. These beings demanded worship. They introduced scarcity. They ruled through fear and conditional survival. They became known as the Anunnaki. What followed was not a war of armies, but a war of consciousness. Two forces collided. One sought order through standardization, predictable behavior, controlled thought, rigid systems. The other defended emotional diversity, free expression, sovereign will. This conflict was not fought with weapons of steel. It was fought through symbols, through stories, through dreams. The result was a forced resolution, remembered only in fragments as a divine treaty. Wildness was pushed into myth, into art, into legend. Order took control of daily reality. But the war did not end. It spilled into human history. Across the planet, ancient structures rose. Pyramids, stone circles, temples, built atop Earth's energetic nodes. Not as tombs, but as interfaces. Texts like the Mahabharata describe weapons of the gods, astras, that did not destroy bodies, but minds. Figures collapsing without wounds. Battles fought through perception, not steel. Humanity recorded these events as myth, because the true battlefield was invisible. And today, some believe fragments of this ancient technology are being rediscovered, rebuilt, re-engineered, hidden behind corporations, military projects, and classified research. Sites like Giza, Stonehenge, Sedona, they are studied not just for history, but for energy. These systems do not function on power alone. They require fear, require obedience, they require fragmentation. And that leads to a different kind of response. Not resistance by force, but by awareness. A coherent mind cannot be controlled. A sovereign consciousness does not resonate with fear. This is not belief, it is strategy. And if any of this feels familiar, if history feels deeper than textbooks, if myths feel like memories rather than stories, then perhaps this is not imagination. Perhaps it is remembrance. So the real question is not who the Anunnaki were, but what was taken from us, and whether it can be reclaimed. And if you stayed until this moment, this channel is already speaking to you, because this is not content made for everyone. It's for those who feel that history is incomplete, that myths are not stories, but signals. If you don't want these threads to disappear, next chapter, the next fragment, the next forgotten truth, then don't let the signal break. Subscribe. Not because I asked, but because what comes next will only be shared with those who are paying attention. The story doesn't end here. This channel exists to continue it.